Welcome back. While we know how it will probably end, Hillary Clinton nonetheless still can't shake Bernie Sanders. He just won Indiana and he's vowing to stay in the race through the convention. And he also wants to peel away some superdelegates who are supporting Hillary. Sanders is also shaking up the party, pulling it arguably to the left. And for some perspective on that and much more, let's bring on our next guest. Former Democratic New York Congressman from the great area of Long Island, Tim Bishop, joins us now. And I'm curious, if somebody told you 6 months ago Trump would have wrapped up the Republican nomination before Hillary did on the Democratic side, you probably would have wanted to test him for something, right?
Not a chance. I mean, I would have bet the gross domestic product that wasn't going to happen. So,
what do you think he's either tapped into? Has it always been there? Are you as surprised as the rest of us by how much appeal he's had?
I think he has very, very skillfully become the spokesperson for a slice of the electorate that is very angry, feeling very disillusioned, very disenfranchised. It is that same slice of the electorate that basically propelled the Tea Party movement that began in 2009 and in 2010, and that was actively encouraged. That anger, that disenfranchisement was actively encouraged by Republican Party leaders, and the end result is the candidacy of Donald Trump. So I have some amusement when I hear about the Republican establishment, whoever that is, wringing their hands and being worried about how Trump has hijacked the party.
You reap what you sow.
You reap what you sow. This is the logical outcome of a very concerted effort to capture that anger and stir it and inflame it because they saw a political benefit. Now they've created a monster they can't control.
On the Democratic side, how much harm or benefit do you think Sanders has caused Hillary, in that even in Trump's statements he says, listen, I'm just going to repeat what Bernie Sanders says about the unqualifications, about that she's captive basically to Wall Street and all the rest. Has he harmed her as a general candidate?
I don't think so, but I think he has to stop. I mean, I think it's very clear that he has virtually no path to the nomination, and I think if he's going to stay in till the convention, which God knows is his right, and he wants to talk about his issues, if he wants to talk about breaking up the banks, if he wants to talk about repealing Citizens United, by the way, I'm with him 100% on that, then I think that's fine. But I think for him to continue the really pretty hard-edged attacks on Secretary Clinton is not productive. So if he really is interested in moving the debate further to the left and seeing the country embrace some of his issues, he's not going to be the guy to lead that movement. Secretary Clinton has to be given the space to be the candidate and the president.
On the subject of money and politics, everybody agrees that there's too much of it in the political sphere, especially since the Supreme Court approved Citizens United ruling that we just mentioned. Now, we've seen how Steve Israel, the outgoing congressman from Long Island and a colleague of Mr. Bishop's, what he's had to say, he was tired of constantly having to raise money. And again, he ran the DSCC for a while as well. And I wanted to play you this clip, and this came from 60 Minutes. This is where Republican Florida Congressman David Jolly explains what he's up against.
You have 6 months until the election. Break that down to having to raise $2 million in the next 6 months, and your job, new member of Congress, is to raise $18,000 a day. Your first responsibility is to make sure you hit $18,000 a day.
Your first responsibility,
My first responsibility
as a congressman.
As a sitting member of Congress.
How are you supposed to raise $18,000 a day?
Simply by calling people.
Steve Israel echoed, this isn't just a Republican thing, it's on the Democratic side too, and I've said the story before. I talked to a freshman Democrat senator, who I won't mention his name, and I talked to him the day before he came on, and he had the afterglow. He's Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and he came in, and his jaw was almost at his knees, and he said, I just got off the phone with Rahm Emanuel, who just had my you-know-what here, because I haven't already been working the phones to raise money. And right away, the reality check came in. How bad is it? I know you miss some parts of Washington. You don't miss this, right?
I don't miss the fundraising. It's not good. I had to raise $3 million over a 2-year period. So basically that worked out to $30,000 a week, week in and week out, and cycle after cycle. That's a challenge. That's a real challenge. Now, I was able to do it. I think Jolly is a pretty good member of Congress. He's a pretty good fundraiser. He'll probably be able to do it. Steve Israel's a ferocious fundraiser. He was able to do it better than most, frankly. But it is a drain on a member's ability to do the job that he or she was elected to do, which is to represent the people of their district and to push ideas that they think are in the best interests of the people of that district. And when you're spending a couple of hours a day on the phone, or you're spending your evenings going to events or whatever, it's not the best use of a member's time.
Have you seen it compromise a lawmaker's ability to either be objective or, the public's perception? You guys were in the pockets of folks.
I actually, I can't cite an example where I saw a member take a dive on a vote because he was beholden to a donor. And I have to say that, as I said, I raised several $1 million over a 2-year period. I never had a donor come to me and say, here's what I now need. I gave you a check, here's what I now need. That never happened.
Coming back finally to the election, and you can also talk from the perspective of being a teacher, where you got kids on a college campus, and you're seeing it through their eyes too. I've had a lot of smart people say to me, you discount Trump at your peril. Look at where he's drawing votes from. It'll be a different map. Now, we just showed the polls, which showed nationally, historically at least, you have to go back a generation to have a candidate trailing by this amount, trailing Hillary by 13, 14 points, depending on the poll. Every swing state he's losing. I can go through all the metrics, but people say he's tapped into something that a lot of people may not want to admit it, but they'll pull the lever for him. Do you think in November we're going to look back on Tuesday evening, right after the election, we're going to do the math and say, man, not only did she clean up, got the Senate in Democratic hands, or do you say, this is a lot tighter than I thought, this thing could have gone either way?
With the caveat that I've been wrong from the moment he declared his candidacy, because I thought he'd be gone by Labor Day. But I think, I agree that we discount him at our peril. And when I say our, I mean Democrats. I remain pretty convinced that Secretary Clinton will win in November, but I don't think it will be the cakewalk that lots of people think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a bruising, difficult, challenging race.
Interesting conversation. I really appreciate you giving us a few minutes.
Thanks for having me.
Up next, corruption or confusion. With New York's arcane ethics rules, sometimes it's hard to tell whether lawmakers are breaking the law or just making some money on the side. We'll talk about that after this.